So now, last but not least, we have a team intermediate one. And I'm going to need you to please turn on your cameras and let me know who is going to share your screen so I can make co-host.
So there should be one called Jay's computer. That's the one that I'll be sharing from.
And it's okay. So we have Sophia. We have Akshaya. Did I say that right? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and then who else is in your team?
Jay and Akaya.
Okay, so Pin. Do I have everybody? Am I missing someone? No? Okay. All right, so let me know when you are ready to start, and I can start the timer as well. So just say go, and I'll go too. Yes, Sophia.
All right. Let's go.
1 second. Sophia's not ready. Okay. All right, we're ready?
Yep.
All right, so go.
All right. Hi. We're intermediate team 1, and we're presenting Oceanic Ethics.
Imagine the mouth-watering scent of freshly grilled seafood, salmon with delicate flakes, and the perfect seasoning and spices. But the cost of this meal is more than just dollars. It is the cost to our planet and our lives.
Our main vision for this project is to provide a solution that supports the achievement of the SDG, life below water, and health and well-being. In order to do that, we aim to create a web app that allows users to be more aware of the seafood that they are consuming. Right now, we have noticed that consumers are becoming more concerned about the ethical practices of food supply companies, which is why we aim to educate people on the subject and allow them to consume more wisely in the future. Furthermore, the success of this goal will allow users to protect themselves and the wildlife being harmed in the process.
My name is Akshaya.
My name is Akaya.
My name is Sophia.
And I'm Jay, and we're a dedicated team of high school students passionate about healthy oceans and healthy lives.
As consumers, we often buy products based on what looks good, not taking into consideration how our choices can affect something beyond just our dinner. We're not able to easily assess how these seafood companies can affect our communities, environment, and even our health. Overfishing disrupts marine food chains, endangered species, and harms ecosystems. And then when marine life is depleted, those who depend on fishing for an income no longer have a job, which is over 120 million people worldwide. Seafood such as our tuna contains things that should come nowhere near our dinner, like mercury, arsenic, and cadmium, which can be detrimental to our health. But how can we easily identify which seafoods will be beneficial to our health and our planet? With Oceanic Ethics, we aim to make information on seafood products easily accessible so you can have all the information you need to make an educated decision with one scan of a barcode. As consumers, we want to access information on the practice of food suppliers, and thus these companies will be motivated to implement ethical and sustainable practices, benefiting both our environment and our health. More data, informed consumers for better choices and a brighter tomorrow.
This is our website. For example, if one day Doina is at No Frills, she picks up a can of spicy Thai chili flakes light tuna, and she decides to visit our Oceanics Ethics page. She'll hit scan now, and then she'll enter the barcode, and wow, it's dolphin safe. However, the eco score grade isn't all that good, so instead she picks up a different product to check. And wow, look at that. Glenrick has an eco score of B, which means it has low environmental impact. So with the use of Oceanic Ethics, Doina now has more data and she can make better choices.
Our marketing strategy focuses on environmentally conscious consumers aged 12 to 43 and businesses like restaurants and retailers. To engage younger audiences, we offer educational content on endangered species and plan to introduce a hazardous waters feature and an Oceanic Ethics ambassador program for schools and youth events. Social media, particularly TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, will be our main focus, leveraging targeted ads and influencers with a 17.96 engagement rate. We'll also provide webinars, workshops, and school partnerships to promote sustainable seafood practices. Content marketing, including newsletters, blogs, and videos, will be tailored to millennials' longer attention spans and Gen Z's preference for short form content. Our no ad policy builds that trust with eco conscious consumers, 54% of whom consider climate impact in their purchases. Our plan can be organized into 3 phases to ensure our app's success. Phase 1 focuses on development, integrating APIs for seafood origin, sustainability, and water quality, with a user-friendly barcode scanner for quick access to this data. This design caters to the 75% of eco-conscious millennials and Gen Z consumers. Phase 2 is the marketing launch, using social media teasers and collaborations with eco-friendly influencers, leveraging the fact that 67% of Gen Z say TikTok content influences their purchases. Targeted ads on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, along with press coverage, will broaden our reach. Phase 3 focuses on growth and engagement, adding features like a hazardous waters map and more endangered species information, and partnering with grocery stores to influence product choices. A feedback loop will ensure continuous improvement, building a strong, engaged community around sustainable seafood.
We've chosen to use an API, which is a tool that allows us to connect and access data from another source quickly and efficiently. Think of an API as a bridge that lets our app communicate with other systems to get the information we need. In this case, we're using the Open Food Facts API because they prioritize transparency, accuracy, and community, values that align perfectly with our goals. The main 3 points of developing our code for the API involve passing the specific barcode into the API endpoint, then fetching the needed data, and then finally displaying the data in a user-friendly manner. The data comes in a long chunk, which is why it was our job to go through it and find what would be most helpful to you. In simpler terms, this was something a lot of you may know as input, process, and output. So now, let's look at a snippet of the code. The function shown here takes a barcode upon the click of a button, and then which allows us to get all the data for that product, and then the code grabs all the data that we want.
As our name indicates, ethics are at the heart of everything we do. We're committed to ensuring that no company, no matter how big or influential, can sway our decisions or influence the data we provide. That's why our business model is backed purely by our users. Free users can access core features such as the scan function and endangered species articles, while premium users can access the hazardous waters map, scanning history, and image recognition. Startup costs such as website maintenance and data gathering can be funded by marine conservation organizations such as the Ocean Action Grant and Blue Action Fund. We will also be taking donations, but we won't accept donations from food companies.
And this is our competitor analysis based on apps with similar functionality such as Yuka and Seafood Watch. Oceanic Ethics is child-friendly and seafood-specific, but it lacks an app and faces some data limitations. But it has the opportunity to partner with secondary demographics such as restaurant chains, grocery stores, and other food providers. And Yuka is popular in app base, but it's not focused specifically on sustainability. It can expand into seafood, which allows for more partnerships and data collection. However, it does face user privacy concerns because of the way that you have to submit your data into the site. Seafood Watch is educational and reputable, but it lacks product scanning and is primarily focused on the US. So it has opportunities to expand globally, though it risks being affected by economic downturn because the company supporting it is the Monterey Bay Aquarium.
To conclude our pitch, I would like to discuss why results can make an impact. The use of this website would lead to more people buying from companies that are sourced ethically and reduce the demand for products that may be hazardous to our health and that aren't responsibly sourced. When we are smart about our food choices, we have a positive impact on both our health and our environment, creating a safer and environmentally friendly world for everyone.
And thank you to the Hervolution staff for making all this possible, and thank you to the judges for listening.
That was it?
Yeah.
Thank you. And thanks for sending me shopping for fish today. All right, the judges. Any questions?
So I had a question about the eco score grade that you mentioned upon entering the barcode. So you mentioned that there's a grade you get upon scanning and then clicking enter. So can you just elaborate a bit more on how this grade is calculated, where it's coming from, and like what data sources or criteria are you using to determine these scores?
Yeah, so in the future, we actually wanted to implement this for the MVP, but we didn't have enough time. Um, there's a lot of data that contributes to the eco score, things like reusable packaging or the CO2 emissions. We specifically wanted to include the CO2 emissions, but too much data, not enough time. But one of the factors that was shown was if any of the ingredients in the food threatened any species. So in the future, we want to make that an option to see all the data points that are contributing to the eco score grade.
Along with that, you asked where the data is gotten from. It's from the API that we use, like Open Food Facts API. And then if you go on their website, they have a whole bunch of products, and that's like where we got all the data. So it goes into that specific API, and that's where I guess they did.
And you also mentioned that your app aims to encourage ethical consumerism. So how do you plan to measure the success of that part of the initiative? Like, do you have some KPIs or like key performance indicators that you'll use as you're scaling and growing the app to try and assess that actual impact?
I think one of the parts that we mentioned is a feedback loop. So if we're able to ask consumers if they took the data into consideration when they bought their food, that's what we would use for the metric. So
I agree. We could also watch the purchasing of perhaps, negative foods, or we could ask the user, what did you scan and did you purchase it?
And you also mentioned that in phase 3 of your plan, you would potentially reach out and connect with grocery stores and introduce new features that way. So how do you plan on introducing the database of their seafood products with your backend implementation? And how do you plan to connect that with, for example, the API you're using and growing it to that end?
So actually the API has an option that if like the seafood product isn't in their database, you can add it yourself. So if consumers scan a product and it isn't on the database or nothing shows up, they can add all the information, or they can scan it and add the information they want to add, so that like we get more information and the database like grows and we get more information.
Yep, that's all for me. I'll pass it over to Sana.
Sure. Love the presentation. I think the whole idea of it is super cool. And when my friend and I went to Halifax a couple of months ago, I think I would have loved to have this app. My question was, I think briefly you mentioned that there was a 17.9% engagement rate. I'm just curious, like, where did you get that data from for engaging with us social media?
Yeah. So it was like a bunch of, we did research prior to this. We have a list of sources, but it's just on like a separate document because we didn't add it to the presentation. But I think there was a study done by like, it was like at the peak of like TikTok and like back in 2022 about like how like when like environmental impact and all that became like more widely, like when people started talking about it more. And I took information from like surveys and like people who like talked about it on that.
My next question was just in the future. So right now, it's based on a barcode. If someone wanted to just find a brand or find something before they even went into the store, would you consider building a feature where people can filter through maybe specifically like the species or everything that goes into the score grade that you have? Is that something that you guys considered or would
I think we would
look at
definitely.
building?
I think we would definitely consider that. And there's another endpoint that we can use that would search for a specific keyword. So if you say search up seafood, then everything would come up for that. And Open Food Facts API isn't just for seafood. So if you did like Nutella or something, that would also come up, but that's not what the website is specifically used for. But if any of the keywords that are in the database and you search for those, they will also come up. So I think that's something that we would implement to allow users to do that even before they got into the grocery store.
Yeah, and we have things like the We want to implement a hazardous waters map where you can search by region or bodies of water, and you could definitely add searching by species or brand too.
My last question was, say the app just gained a lot of traction over the next little bit. Would you consider, instead of relying on the Open Foods API, would you ever just create your own database and populate it based on specifically the seafood? Because I know, like you mentioned, the Open Food Facts also has other food information.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely want to have like a user feedback loop. We want to be able to collect as much data specifically about seafood as we can, because there aren't actually a lot of APIs that give this like niche sort of information. So that's a place in the market that we definitely want to fill.
That's all the questions I had. Thank you so much.
Oh my
Thank you.
gosh.
Thank you.